For players, it is common to discover the game world as they play. But for the GM, it is common to prepare the game world and to incorporate it as you play. But there are methods you can use, so you as a GM can too discover the game world as you play. There are generally three ways to go about this. First is improvisation, then there's random generation, and finally player input. Improvisation is pretty straightforward. You, as a GM, come up with the game world as the players explore it, maybe right there on the spot. Typically, you have some idea in your head what you want your game world to be like. And this is a form of discovery play, where you, as a GM, are discovering the depth of your own imagination. To start to improvise, you can just leave yourself blanks in your preparation, leave yourself room to improvise. As you get better at this, you can leave more and more room in your preparation until you only start with a vague idea of where you want things to go. As you come up with this stuff during the game, as the game unfolds, you should take notes, however, so you can reuse these places and NPCs, these ideas, later in the campaign. Random generation is another tool to use and generate the gaming world. I love random tables. Usually I use them before the game to prepare the gaming world, but it's totally possible to use them during the game to generate the world. Starting with something classic like random encounter tables, you can elaborate on those, and a whole campaign can come out of a chance encounter on the road. Many games also have random tables to generate NPCs on the spot, locations, towns, taverns, monsters, plots, you name it. Let me give you some examples of this. Veins of the Earth, for the Lamentations of a Flame Princess game, is about exploring a vast network of underground caves and caverns, and instead of giving you a map and a description of these locations straight away, they give you elaborate system and huge random tables to generate these caves and caverns, even during the play, if you want to. Basically, you roll a few dice to generate each cave on its own, the way in, the way out, maybe other exits, what is in the cave. And then you make up and generate the passageways connecting these different caves, slowly but surely creating the gaming world. With this method, your group can explore the veins of the Earth almost indefinitely and always find something new. Stars Without Number has an elaborate system and again huge random tables to generate star systems, worlds and whole sectors randomly and on the fly. It's pretty much in the name. You start by placing the stars, then the worlds, and you elaborate on that and go into ever more detail as you explore. You would usually do this before a session to prepare the world, but you can totally do this during the game. As the players explore it, you can generate it. Going from rumors they hear about a place, then they go there and pick up the first sensor readings, and they will eventually land, and you make up more and more detail about the world as the players explore it. Player input shifts some of the responsibility for world building from the GM to the players. Dungeon World is an example of this style that I am most familiar with. Once again, you start by leaving blanks in your preparation. The more blanks you leave, the more room there is for player input to fill these blanks in. The secret in here lies in how you use the Dungeon World player moves. First, there is the Discern Realities moves, which is Dungeon World's version of Perception. But it is not named though, because as the players use this move, you, as the GM, come up with the world on the spot. You discern, you concrete, you make the reality as you use this move. Where's the player input? The players have a limited number of questions they can ask the GM when using these moves. And by them choosing what questions to ask, they tell you where they want things to go, what they are looking for at the moment. If they ask, for example, what is useful or valuable here, you come up with some treasure or some way to progress, maybe a campsite, something that at the moment will be useful or valuable to the group. If they ask, who is really in control here, you come up with a dark, secretive villain that is pulling the strings from behind the scene. If it hasn't been there before, now it certainly is. And if they ask, what here is not what it appears to be, you come up with something sinister. Or maybe a secret passage. Whatever progress your game, whatever is best in the spirit of the moment. The trick here is not to dismiss these questions, not to say, no, there isn't anything. The trick is to leave enough blanks in there, to leave the world malleable enough that you can react to these questions and always fill something in. The Spout Lore move is used by the PCs to search their character's memory for something of importance to the situation at hand. And then you as a GM tell them some snippet of information. And you are encouraged to ask your players where their characters learn this information. But there's also the possibility, also for the Discern Reality moves, to return the question to the players. If you don't have something concrete in mind, you can always ask the players what they are looking for. You can ask them to spout the lore, to give some information, to fill out some blank spaces in the game world. I once had my players explore the ruins of an old castle, and while they explored it, they found the skeletal remains of the defenders. And I asked my players, what is the gear of these skeletons like? What are they wearing? What is their uniform? Then later I asked them what the attackers that brought this castle to ruin had been like. My players, thinking that these skeletal remains would reanimate and attack them, described them as having really shabby, worn down and improvised gear, and the castle's attackers became monstrous Nagas and their even more monstrous creations. When later they found the heart of the castle, they were drawn backwards in time into a time loop and suddenly were part of the defenders of the castle, clad in worn-down uniform, using broken and improvised equipment, having to mount a desperate defense against a horde of attacking Naga and their monstrous creations. It was pretty fun and dramatic adventure. This is of course nothing that is exclusive to Dungeon World. This is a method you can use in any game, any system. Can return these questions to the players and have them fill in the lore, fill in the blanks of the gaming world. I also made a video some weeks ago about drawing the campaign map as a group. This is a method I learned from the Dungeon World supplement, The Perilous Wilds, and I had some great fun campaigns that started with just me and 3 friends standing around a table with a blank piece of paper. With both random generation and player input, you always run the risk to get something that is inappropriate or destructive, or you just don't like it. I would encourage you to try to embrace at least some of this chaos and see where it will lead you. But of course, it is your job as a GM, your responsibility to moderate this input you get, to modify it, to re-roll, and to discard what simply does not fit. In any case, no matter what input you get, it can always be inspiration to come up with something of your own. This is what I have on discovery of the game world at the moment. So, what are your favorite systems to use to come up with the gaming world? Do you have any good war stories about your players coming up with some crazy lore? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.